Happy Love Month, guys! In today's tutorial, we're going to focus on our February 2018 bullet journal layout. So let's get started. Hey guys, I'm Shayda Campbell, and on this channel I focus on art tutorials like hand lettering, watercolor, and Bujo. So if that's your thing, consider subscribing if you haven't already. I just want to take a sec to say thank you to all of you who've chosen to support me on Patreon this year. It means I can keep making these videos, and that's so important to me. And right now, because we're doing our February Bujo, I've created a little Bujo printable that you can go download and print. For a $2 monthly donation, patrons get access to all the printables I put over there, so go check it out. So I'm just going to start with a quick flip through of my journal, since this is only the second month that I've been doing the Bujo tutorials. I started out last month doing the January layout. If you missed that one, go check it out. I'll link the video below, but this is the layout that I chose to do. It's sort of the 2-page with the illustration on the left and the calendar and month at a glance on the right, and we'll follow a similar formula for February. And then this is the weekly layout that I chose to use for each week, and I loved this layout. It lets me have a nice, clean, clear to-do list for every week with lots of room for notes, but also lots of negative space, room to do a little doodle there on the left. I really like that. And then also in January, this wasn't in the video, but this was something I did later. I just did this fun little illustration with a backpack and a laptop. This month for me was just all about stationery and fun stuff like that. And then to the right here where it says January in the snowflake, I had done sort of a fun little personal goals tracker for the month where you list all these different goals in different areas of your life, like career and friends and fun stuff. So I don't know if I'll do that for February, but that was a layout that I had seen on Pinterest, and I had fun doing it for January. And I also covered it in the Bujo Doodles video. If you haven't seen that tutorial, I'll also link that video in the description as well. Okay, flipping the page here, I do put a little tape on the pages to keep them together if there's too much ink bleeding through. So now we're into this week, and I've got my weekly layout, my to-do list. So the list we're looking at is actually what I'm doing right now, making this week's video, very meta. And I've done a little plant doodle there because we just got some new herbs. So when I'm doodling, I'm trying to draw stuff that's around the house and that's going on with me. And then as we flip the page, we come to our February layout, because February is going to start next week. So I've got a similar layout to January where I've got the calendar and sort of my month at a glance, important dates, etc. on the right hand side. And then I'm going to do an illustration on the left hand side with the month title, but we'll come back to that later. For now, let's talk about what we've got on the right hand side here. It is very similar to January. I've got my calendar, and I do that layout by simply drawing a grid in pencil, and then I put in all the dates, and I just go along with a little marker and add some colorful underlining. My color for this month is going to be this warm medium gray. I'm going to use that quite a bit as we go through the rest of the February layout. So I'm just highlighting my titles here and just trying to create a little division within the page. And then I think that's about all I have to say about that. We'll erase all of that grid and all those pencil marks later, and then that page is totally done. Now this month for February, I did add a little something. I decided to extend the month at a glance. So even though we did our mini month at a glance and title page there, when you flip the page here, I've also gone further with the month at a glance and added a little sort of to-do list date reminder section for each week of the month so that I can put even more details in and keep myself organized. For my color palette, I used warm gray and light pink, and I just added a touch of color to my illustrations, using it on the little calendar to create some division across the date headers. I did these sort of whimsical makeup sketches or doodles, and I just added a teensy bit of color to them. We've talked about this on the channel before, but choosing a simple color palette can really help your doodles and illustrations to look sophisticated. So here you can see how these two colors just work together and make this page pop and really look professional. One of the items that I'm still focusing on is minimalism and simplicity in my designs. I did get quite a bit more whimsical, I would say, with the February layout, but I still tried to keep things clean and simple with lots of large margins and white space. And the best part is you guys can get this layout on my Patreon. So I've actually digitized the entire layout, and you guys can go get it and print it out and put it in your own journal, so you can have one of my designs for your own planner if you like. I'm also going to put this in my Etsy shop, so if you're not comfortable or you don't want to go on Patreon, you can simply purchase this, and it's just an instant download on Etsy, and you can print it out. So I'll link all of that in the description below the video. Okay, now real talk, if you don't want to buy it and you want to do it yourself, I think that's probably your best option. And I think this is a really easy layout to copy. The most important thing is just that you keep these lines as straight as you can, and as I always say, you do that by pulling the pen towards your body. So just mark where you're going to start and stop, and then pull that pen in towards yourself. It helps you keep it steady, so just move the page so that you're always pulling your arm and the pen towards you. And yeah, and I think this is a fairly simple layout to copy, and I hope that it really helps me stay organized this month, because I do have a busy February. Now as we flip the page, you can see I've continued with my weekly layouts. I'm going to leave a page in between there, and I always write the dates of the week that it is at the top of the page, and I underline it with a little bit of washi tape. And because I'm choosing a simple neutral minimal color palette for this journal, I'm just usually using black washi tape, and that also helps me, as I said, to keep the pages together if I've got a lot of ink bleeding through one page. So I'll write the dates in here. This is going to be for next week, for the end of January and the start of February. So fairly simple, and then I've got my weekly layout all done. And if you recall, I just keep that little notes section at the bottom. That really helps me to just be able to write down anything I need to during the week. And I complete the letters with just a little bit of simple line shading, and I love the way this simple minimal layout looks. It really is the look that I want for my bullet journal. Now if we just flip back here, let's go over our month title page together. So I'm going to erase all the pencil marks, as I said, on that page, and then now I can just focus on the left hand side on completing my illustration. You can see it there in pencil. I've done a very light sketch. A little tip is that when you're working on the left-hand side of your journal, if you do have a thicker journal like mine, it helps to put a book underneath so that you've got a smooth surface that's level and you're not sort of hindered by the crease in the journal. Now, I started my illustration here by doing a little window in the very center of the page. I also made sure that to put the title February in the very center. And from there, once I knew everything was centered, I just sketched out this wintry paned window with some trees outside and with a tea kettle and a cup and some tea in the foreground. And this is just, to me, so what February feels like this year. And it's just this sort of thoughtful, quiet illustration. And that's definitely what I'm feeling this week. And although our window in our kitchen isn't quite this pretty, the scene outside is. We have these gorgeous pine trees in the backyard, and they're always snow covered as of late, so I am definitely drawing from life here. And I have this beautiful kettle. Actually, I'll link the kettle in the description below, because it is seriously the nicest kettle. And it was a gift from Chris, but it is it's just one of those things, one of those nice things that you'll just have forever. And so yeah, I'm gonna link that. But anyways, so anywho, rambling on, this is just a little sketch that I did, and I think the best thing you can do when you're going over your sketches in pen here, I'm using a Pigma Micron, and I'm using the 02 nib. The 02 and the 03 are sort of my Goldilocks nibs for doing these smaller illustrations. A lot of the lettering I do like the 05. But I'm just going over my illustration in pen, and I think the key is adding lots of line shading and detail. So on the mug, I'll do a little stippling because it's sort of a pebbled clay mug, and you can see on the side of the kettle I've done some simple lines to indicate shadow, and I'm going to add some lines and hatching for the shadow underneath the mug and underneath the box of tea bags. And it's really just adding in those details. So decide, where's the light coming from? I mean, in this illustration, easy, it's coming from the window. So the shadow is sort of coming towards us, or maybe going a bit to the left. And the box of tea is going to have a dark end because it's facing away from the window. So just taking a moment to think about those details will really help to elevate your ink illustration. And I do love doing this. It's a really meditative process to just sit with your pen and paper, and you don't need a lot of supplies. And I really had a lot of fun putting this little illustration together this month. Now outside the window, I'm illustrating these snow-covered pine trees, and I am sort of drawing in the snow, as you can see, but I'm also trying my best to use negative space to indicate the snow. And actually, it wasn't until I started doing this I kind of realized, well, this is actually kind of a lot like the candle in the window illustration or watercolor that we did before Christmas. So I suppose I was a little inspired by that. But again, we talked about doing snow on a tree or on greenery in that video. And here I'm sort of trying again at this, using the negative space to indicate the snow. And I'm going to finish up this little illustration today by just putting a few dots to indicate falling snow. And that's about it. I'll drop down here and write the word February. I'm not capitalizing it. I'm just doing a really simple, perfectly imperfect cursive. And then I'm thickening each downstroke to create that faux calligraphy look that I love so much. And just like with the other side of the page here, once the ink has dried, which is just literally a few seconds, I'm going to take an eraser and get rid of all my initial pencil sketches, and then I'm all done. I love the way this came together. As I often say, I think part of the reason it works so much is all that negative space that also contributes to the minimal look of my bullet journal that I love so much. So remember, negative space, leave those margins on the side. Well, thank you guys so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed the February flip through and that you got some ideas and inspiration for your own bullet journal. And thanks for all your kind words on social media. I'm so glad you're enjoying these bullet journaling tutorials because I am loving making them. I'm so into journaling now. And guys, remember, you can get my planner printables, the ones that I designed for February. They're in my Etsy shop, and they're also available for my patrons on Patreon. It's an instant download. You just print it out and you can enjoy these in your own planner. All right, I think that's everything. If you're wondering about last week's giveaway winner from the watercolor video, that is listed in the video description below, so check that out. And of course, if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and hit the thumbs up. And I'll see you next week with a new tutorial.